Hi, I'm artist Linda Brothwell. I've made this kit that hopefully you've received through your door of tools for tea. So it's making a tea strainer in your own home. A lot of my practice is tool making, and it's about how the objects that we touch and we connect with every day become these special moments. And by making something yourself, hopefully you feel even more of a connection and really enjoy the making process. So this project will take about 3 hours approximately to make, but it's cut really simply into small sections so you can follow along as you please. So you can use the tea strainer in your own home by just collecting some leaves from your garden or loose leaf tea from the shop and using a teapot, and then just pour into the tea strainer and it will collect the leaves once the tea or the tisane is mashed. I hope you enjoy. So the first thing to do is to introduce what you might get in your kit. So in your kit, what you'll have is a collection of wooden items and a collection of metal items. So all the pieces of metal go together to make the strainer, and all the pieces of wood go together to make the tools to make the strainer. So there's two parts to it, so we're going to assemble it ready for the first part. So the long dowels we're just going to put on the side for now. But the short dowels, we're going to pop into these 3 holes that you can see in the thingamajig. So we'll pop it in here, 1, 2, 3. And then if you can see on the board, there's just these 3 holes here that it should fit in exactly. So we just pop it in here and squeeze the 2 together. And the 2 pegs, which are kind of mushroom-headed pieces of wood, these go in the top. And they come all the way through the bottom. And the reason for that is it just helps you, when you turn it around, you can line it up on your table. And using the edge of the table, this is going to give you something to push against. Because the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to bend this bar. So we're going to make the fork in this section. And this is what we're aiming for. This is the fork. So we need a ruler, and the bar is 250 ml long, so we're just going to mark at 125. You can use a pencil here, don't worry, it will just wipe off really easily. And if you find this centre point here and line it up with the thingamabob, we're just going to use that to press. This is where the pegs come in really useful as well, because we can just use those to get an extra little bit of energy by pushing off the table should you need it. So press. So that's the fork done. So now we're on to the stage where we're going to make the basket. So that's this piece here. And to do that, it's using these 8 thin bundles of wire. And the first job is to set up our tool. I've got these 4 long dowels, and they go in the 4 holes that are inside the circle. And they'll stick up quite proud, and that's good because we're going to weave onto those. So I'll just pop that to the side for now. So with these 8 bundles, number 1 is slightly different. And number 8, the action that we're doing is slightly different, but the middle 6, the action that we're doing, is actually all the same. So for now, we're going to start with bundle 1. So when you're unravelling the bundle, you might notice a few kinks in it. To stop those, just squeeze it between your fingers and pull. But don't worry too much about it. Actually, to create this mesh, we're going to use quite a lot of kinks and twists and turns, and so actually they'll come in quite helpful later on. So now we've unravelled the wire, we're going to do the 4 little loops which represent where the fork comes in and out. So these little loops correspond to where the dowels are, and we're just going to very roughly do them at this point. So it's quite scruffy, but it just helps us know where we're going to kind of work into later. So it's a real kind of, just a sort of pencil mark effectively. So taking a hand span from the end, so here, roughly, so that's about 20 centimetres. We're just going to wrap it around our finger once and twice, so loop and loop, and then take it off our finger and we're going to twist and twist. That's number one. So number two, same thing again. We're just going to go a rough hand span, so about 20 centimetres, loop, loop, and twist and twist. So same thing again. We're going to go a rough hand span, so little finger stretch to thumb, so that's about 20 centimetres. We're going to go loop, loop, twist, twist. So it's quite a scruffy little loop that's created. And same again, final time, hand span, loop, loop, twist, twist. Now we've got one, oh, it's pinging all over the place. 1, 2, 3, 4 loops. And we're just going to pop those on the dowels, and that's starting our weaving. So we've got the 4 loops on the dowel, and now with this extra bit of wire, all I'm doing is I'm scrunching it, squishing it, and I'm just trying to roughly make it stay inside that circle shape that's there. And that was bundle 1 finished, so now we're ready for bundle 2. Throughout the making of the tea strainer, there's just a few skills that you're going to need to pick up. So one of them is a little bit of a hack rather than a skill. So I've just got this little bit of thread here as a demonstration. The long pieces of thin wire that we have are about 2 meters, which is a little bit unwieldy, to be honest, and they're a bit springy. So when you get one, if you just loosely find the middle and fold it in half and just pop that little bite through the weaving somewhere, doesn't really matter where, and then pass the ends through again. So again, this blue is just for demonstration purposes, just because it's a little bit hard to see when everything's together. But by doing that, what that means is we've now got 2 1 meter lengths, which is a lot easier to deal with. So we just pop one of the lengths to the side, and then we're going to start working with the other one. And what we're going to do here is we're going to weave in and out as much as we can. And the direction is more of a squiggle than a zigzag. So we're not kind of going across, you know, straight line, straight line, straight line. We're going to weave as much as we can, in and out, going in all different directions. And the more different directions that we can do, the more even the weave is going to be in the end, and the more beautiful the basket will be. Okay, so I'm going to take this little demo piece of string out now. And I'll start with the wire. So this is left over from the last stage, which is where we made the 4 loops. And it's very, very springy, and it's very kind of pinging all over the place. So just feed the tail in, put some twists in. Just going to start to make this mesh for ourselves. So if you've got a nice loop here, you might want to push it through another loop, flatten it out. So this is how we eventually create a tighter weave and a more consistent basket. So now we're ready to start with the next piece of wire. And I'm just going to bring one of its legs through that little loop I just made, just as I did with the blue piece of string. And all that's doing is that's locking it in. So now we've got 2 1 meter lengths to work with rather than 1 2 meter length. So it's a lot easier. I'm just going to grab one of the legs and working and holding the end a little bit like you would do stitching, darning, embroidering. I'm going to work with this end almost as if this is my needle, and I'm going to weave in and out lots and lots and lots of times and create loops and twists and stitches as we go. So I'm popping it in here and pulling it tight. Now if it catches on some of your little kind of kinks or bends, don't worry about it. It's all very malleable and it's very, very forgiving. What you can do is you can just squish it, you can twist it, you can tie it together. Just pause every now and again just to press it down, just so you can see where you are. And these stitches at this point often are tying together some of the more big and unwieldy loops. Bundle 3 starts just the same as bundle 2. I found the middle, made this little bend, and I'm just going to pop it in and bend it over so it's nice and secure by just feeding one of the legs through again. In the same way we talked about last time, that means that I've got 1 meter over there, and I'm just going to ignore that for now. And now I've got 1 meter here, and I'm going to work with this one. The purpose of this layer is to really start to focus on creating a nice tight, zigzaggy, squiggly weave that goes all the way around and doesn't go in straight lines too much in any one direction. As you can see from the basket here, the end result is lots and lots of loops and twists and turns that all interlock. And this kind of soft, flowing basket is what we want, and we're going to create that by weaving in and out and creating loops and twists the whole way through. So it's quite a tight weave and quite a consistent weave, but the feel of it is all quite round and soft and looping. If you come across one of your ends from the previous bundles, all you have to do is just twist them together here. And don't worry about them too much. Actually, when the basket's all made, they kind of all disappear into each other. But if you do find one with an extra long tail or that you want to get rid of, you can just twist it together like that and hide it. Bundle 4 starts much the same as the one that went before. I've just found the middle approximately of the wire, put a little fold in it here, and at this point now actually you can take this off here. It's got a little bit of strength to itself. I won't do it for too long, I'll just do it for this stage and then I'll pop it back just so we don't get too confused with where the holes are because they're only just visible. So pop this little bend through the middle. And now this time, instead of pulling all the legs all the way through and doing that knot like we did with the blue bit of string and the bundle since, so we'll open up here and then just do something like this. So we'll make 2 little rabbit ears, we'll just twist, we'll squish it, we'll twist them together, and that's enough really, just to lock it into place for now, and then we'll weave into it as we carry on. So turning it back over, now I have the lovely job of trying to find out where those loops were, and I think it's here, here, here and here. This is why we don't take it off the board much at this stage. So I'll just pop them over here again. I think that's pretty much right. As ever, I've now got two approximately 1 meter lengths. I'm going to get one out the way, and I'm going to work with this one here. So we're going to just carry on kind of working, especially in these more open spots here. You can see this has quite a lot of work that needs to be done. And we're just going to keep doing that and keep this big circle shape. We're going to just tap the piece just to kind of start to create this flat sheet of mesh rather than this springy piece here. So if you have, as we talked about at the start, if you have a mallet, now's the time to use it. If you have a normal household hammer, sort of a metal hammer of any description, pop a sock or a glove on it, just so that kind of face that sometimes can be quite scratched on normal household hammers, just so it's a little bit softer, more like the mallet. Or if you don't have either of those things, find a cup, mug from the cupboard with a nice sort of straight side here, and we're going to use that almost like a rolling pin. We're going to roll instead of hit. So I'll show you what we're going to do with a mallet or a hammer. Is we're going to just tap down. We're just taking a little bit of the spring out, and we're just making it more of one unit rather than lots and lots of thin bits of wire all going in different directions. Every bundle that you do from now on, you'll do that, and it's just about making this a single sheet of mesh rather than lots and lots of wires. We're starting the same, so you should be an expert at this by now. So we're folding it in half, and we're just going to use that little bend to pop through. Because we've hammered it, or used a mug, or used a mallet, whatever, you can actually now take it off the board and we can start to work without the tool. So it becomes a little bit easier and you can become a little bit more flexible. So I'll pop the tool to one side. And again, I've got that little bend and I'm just going to pop that through. Again, the only reason I'm doing this is so I'm not having to work with 2 whole meters of loose wire, which can become a little bit kind of pingy, and they can sort of hit you in the face if you're not paying attention as well. So I've just done a simple stitch, just wrapped it around a couple of times. So now I've got these 2 legs. As ever, I'm going to put one to the side and I'm going to carry on working with this one here. The purpose of this bundle is to just give that extra little bit of attention to those 4 holes. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So just to really make sure that you're weaving in and around them and making them kind of part of the fabric of the mesh, because we don't want them as little satellites on their own. We want everything kind of tied in together really nicely. So I'm in the middle and I'm just going to weave in and out and make my way over to those. Because we want quite a tight mesh, I'm not just going straight over there now. I'm just doing some little stitches on my way, kind of as a wiggly line getting all the way over there. I really like this stage when it's in your hands because it starts to feel very much like you can imagine what it's going to be like when it's finished. So it starts to feel quite rewarding. Made my way over to one of the holes now, and all I'm going to do is just make sure that I'm going to kind of keep going in those loops that I made in the first bundle and keep stitching in and around them. Obviously those holes are going to get a little bit smaller as we kind of keep working into them, but that's absolutely fine. We had a lot of space to play with. I just want to make sure they're still defined so we can still see them. And the purpose of that is that when we're using the tea strainer, when we've got the fork, we can really clearly see, like, okay, it goes in here and here. Like, it's just nice and easy to do. We don't want to be looking at our mesh and kind of going, oh, is that the hole? Is that the hole? So it's just about really clear points where the fork fits in, and so it's nice and simple to use. We're at the start of bundle 6 now, and before we start weaving again, I'm just going to show you how we're going to start to make that basket shape. So it's quite simple. We've got this nice sort of disc now. I obviously hammered it down or used a mug at the end of the last bundle. So I've got this disc, it's got some holes still in it that I need to look at, areas where I want to concentrate more. But let's start to get the shape formed, because then we're going to have the tension correct. So by setting up this little angle with my fingers and then pushing my thumb into it, I'm forcing the mesh to curve up inside. I'm doing that with both fingers, both hands, sorry. And we're working again, as I said from the start, we're working from the outside in. When I reach the middle, I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but just working back to the outside. And the next part of this is I'm just going to persuade it a little bit more. So I'm just going to pop it in my hands and just use that to kind of squeeze together, just to kind of gently persuade it to be the basket shape that you want it to be. What I'm thinking about while I'm making this shape is the cup or the mug that I'm going to use this for. So of course, if you drink from a cup and saucer, generally your cup is a little bit wider. So you might want this basket to be a little bit shallower so it has that width. Or if you have a cup here like mine, this is the perfect size for that one here. So it's this nice kind of ball shape. So just have a look around your kitchen, pick your favourite mug or cup, and then start to think about the shape and size that this might be to work with it really well. Now we've got the shape, we're going to carry on weaving, and as ever, just put my little bend in my piece of wire halfway. So with this bundle, what I'm going to start focusing on are any kind of big areas. So you can see here on mine, I've got a big gap here. So I'm just going to focus a little bit more there. I will do the whole layer, but I will just kind of put that extra little bit of attention on those areas. So you're weaving just as you did before, but make sure your ins and outs are quite close together, because we want to keep this as a nice flat piece, kind of a nice sheet of the mesh. And so by keeping the stitches nice and close together, you're kind of really pulling it all tight, and it's making a really nice kind of consistent piece. So put your bend and feed it through, and then carry on just as you were before, weaving in and out. And I'll see you at the next bundle. The purpose of this bundle, at number 7, is that we're just going to identify some spaces where there's a little bit of a gap that I don't really like, and we're just going to work in those areas more than anywhere else. Bundle 8 we're going to use to go around the top edge, so we don't need to worry too much about that now. But the first task is just to check that the fork that we made works nicely with these holes now we've made the curve. So we just slot it through, and that works really well. I'm happy with that. Sits nice, it's quite even. I think that's a really good fit. So I'll take the fork out now and just pop it to one side. So I'll carry on here, and if you look at your basket and you carry on identifying any holes, any spaces, and just fill them in with this bundle number 7. And then I'll meet you back for bundle number 8. We're on bundle 8 now, so we've reached the end. Congratulations. And what we're going to do is just finish this edge really. So we just want it to be nice and consistent. So you can see here it's dipping down a little bit too far. It's not keeping a nice kind of circle. So I'm just going to fill in those parts and just work all around this top edge. I'm pretty much going to ignore all of this middle bit because I'm happy that with the last bundle I filled in all the gaps that I wanted to, and that my nice 4 holes here are really clean and where they should be. So I'm going to pop in this little loop again, and I'm just going to weave all around the top. So it's exactly the same action that you've already been doing. We're just going to create a few more loops and twists just to make this top edge nice and even. So let's get going. So I've made a little bridge here. Just woven in here, and then adding these little loops just to create an extra little bit of bulk in that section that we identified earlier that needed a little bit more wire. So now we've got something to weave into, which is the start. And now we're going to weave in and out, and just create more of our mesh pattern into these sections. So that's the end of bundle 8. I've just filled in a little bit of the edge around some of the points and just tidied up other bits. So it's not a really clean, sharp line edge. I do like a little bit of movement just to show that it's this handmade, kind of organic hand-woven piece. But just to give it that extra little finishing touch, we do need to hammer it again. So for me, I'm going to get my mallet. Once you've used your mallet or hammer or mug, you probably will have distorted the shape just a little bit. So don't be nervous, just really, you can use your hands, you can make it the shape you want to do. It's not everything is possible. So we're just going to squeeze it again, making it this nice curved shape. Okay, brilliant. So we've reached the end. Let's put it together and check it works. Just going to feed the fork through, pop it in the cup, and then let's pour the tea.